What if I told you there was one biblical habit that if you practiced it every day, it would actually make you a smarter person, a more successful entrepreneur, and overall you would just feel more confident about your own future, especially when it comes to business. Now, not only is this backed up by modern research, it has been in this book in the Bible for thousands of years. So I'm just going to share with you what that habit actually is and how you can start doing it with me today. God laid out this blueprint to build a business in the first chapter of the book of Proverbs. This is the first video where we're going to go through each chapter of Proverbs for Christian entrepreneurs. And in chapter 1, this is where it begins. It lays out the blueprint right here. It says, "These are the Proverbs of Solomon, David's son, king of Israel. Their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline," write that down, "to help them understand the insights of the wise." Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, to help them do what is right, just, and fair. These proverbs will give insight to the simple, knowledge and discernment to the young. So right off the bat, let's just start with who is Solomon. If you don't know who that is, I'm assuming you do if you clicked on this video. Just in case you don't, Solomon, if he were alive today, would have been worth trillions and trillions of dollars. So his words are worth something. Even if you don't believe in the Bible, his words are worth something. So what this means for you is that the blueprint for business, just to make it very clear, let's spell it out, is wisdom plus discipline equals success. Acquire wisdom, do it every single day, and it is inevitable that you become a successful person. Success is just the fruit of those two things. So wisdom and discipline, you will become a successful person. You will build a profitable and a business that truly never dies. However, some key points. The purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to live disciplined and successful lives. But whatever your view, whatever your idea of success is, it is not just about money. It's not just about building a business that is profitable. Those are great things, but they will be a byproduct if you acquire wisdom and discipline. It is also to do what is right, just, and fair. Because I know you've heard this quote before, if you are not growing, you are dying. How do you know Apple is still growing? Because they're always still recruiting a bunch of people. They're always still looking for the next best hire. They're always still growing their workforce because they know if you're not growing, you're dying. They have to constantly bring new and better people on. That's what they're looking for. But let's bring it to a personal level. If you have ever asked yourself, why do I keep going up and down? Why is my progress like a roller coaster? Why does it keep doing that? Why do I love my business one day, but the next day, I can't stand it. I absolutely hate it. If you've ever asked yourself this on a personal level, it's because you are depending on something that's not even listed there. What's listed there is wisdom, discipline. Do what is right, just, and fair. You will become a successful person. What's not listed there and what you are depending on is motivation. Motivation, and as far as I'm concerned, is listed nowhere in the Bible. Motivation is not listed in this blueprint. Wisdom and discipline, acquiring wisdom, constantly growing, personal development, personal growth, doing that every day, that is listed. That is the blueprint. Motivation is not. Even motivation requires discipline. Let's say you love something one day, but you hate it the next day, and then you love it the day after that. Is that really love? Yeah, probably not, because to love something, you got to do it every single day. Even motivation, you got to have it every single day, which means you first need discipline. So you need wisdom and discipline. But let's think about it again on another personal level. Since January, for me it's May, but how many New Year's resolutions have died since January? Most people, they come into January, they're all hyped and they're like, man, this is the year I'm going to win. If it's to build a business or if it's just to lose weight, whatever it is, they come into it and you think, man, this is the year. But statistically, most people on January 1st, they have goals. On February 1st, they forgot all about them. And that's just how it works. I know you would never, but that's how most other people are. It's because they're depending on motivation, not wisdom and discipline. If they had the wisdom to stick to it long enough and to do it every day, the discipline, they would have gotten what they wanted. How often have you woken up, known the work you got to do, but you just don't do it? It eventually you keep pushing it to the next hour, and then it becomes the next day and you just end up not doing it. That is why your progress is going up and down. Your inconsistency, it's not a mystery. It's just what happens when you depend on motivation rather than building discipline. Now, where do we start to actually build the wisdom to build the discipline? Where do we start with this? How do I fix the inconsistency? That is answered in the next couple verses, in verses 5 through 7, which says, "Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. Let those with understanding receive guidance by exploring the meaning in these proverbs and parables, the words of the wise and their riddles. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline." So let's take the key points from these couple verses. Let the wise listen. Let them become even wiser. Let them receive guidance by exploring. The fear of God is the foundation of true knowledge. And we're going to break all of these down. But how many times, if you go, and I'm sure a lot of scientists have said this, but some of the most famous scientists in the world, they all agree that the more they learn, the more they understand there's more that they don't know. They need to constantly grow. Wisdom is something, if you acquire it, you understand that you need to continue acquiring it, that it never ends. There is a constant need for wisdom, and that foundation of wisdom is a fear of God. In our modern language, fear, people get confused by that. Fear is more about respect. It's a healthy fear of God is a healthy respect of God. To understand that God as the foundation, the more you learn, the more wisdom you gain, the more you understand that you need to come back to God for more wisdom. He is that foundation. The more you understand, the more you need to grow. That's what's happening here. It's if God is your foundation, the more wisdom you acquire because you start to understand it more. That's what happens. And where this becomes a little tricky is, I've done this before, I'm sure you have done this as well, is okay, if God is the foundation of this, if I need God as my foundation to constantly acquire wisdom just because I need to respect God, what does that mean? I want to hear God's voice. Why can't I hear him? It's a fair question, but what you're saying without actually saying it is that you want to hear God, but really what you're looking for is you want him to send you a miracle. You want him to send you a burning bush right in front of you to spell it out for you. This is what you do. And ironically, this is called his word, but you don't pick up his book. You don't read his word. You want to hear him, but you don't want to read his word. You're looking for a miracle just to hear God, but he just wants you to sit down and listen to focus a little bit. And where I think a lot of people fall, and hopefully this is not you, is that they don't understand what focus is. Now, I got this definition of focus from, I believe it's Alex Ramosi. I could be wrong, but I think he has a really good definition of what focus really is. It's more about subtraction instead of addition. When you tell somebody to focus, when you're told to focus, the trap you will fall into a lot of the times if you're not careful is you start to add more things to look at. You start to think, okay, I need to focus. You start to add the correct things, which is the crazy part. It is the correct things that you should be focusing on, but you never subtracted the wrong things. You never subtracted the distractions. Focus is more about subtraction than addition. You gotta subtract the things that shouldn't be there before you can really look at the things that should be there. So you might even have the right blueprint for your business. You might even be on the right path, but it's not working because you have not subtracted the incorrect things. You have the correct things, but there's too many incorrect things still just sitting in your face. And so what that means for you, this is another quote I'm sure you've heard: you are what you eat, right? You are what you eat. But what we don't realize is that you are also what you listen to. You are also what you read. You are also who you surround yourself with. All these things influence the way you think and therefore the way that you grow. They influence whether you are growing, because if you're not growing, whether you are growing or whether you are dying. And that might be a wake-up call to consider who your friends are. That doesn't mean if you're not growing, you have to go to all your friends and, nah, I hate you, we're not friends anymore. You don't need to do all that. You don't need to be extra. It just means you need to understand that if your environment doesn't align with your goals will never be reached. You need to create an environment that is good for growth. A tree doesn't grow without good soil, without the proper environment. It's the same thing for you. So I'm going to give you some practical steps that I actually did that transformed the way that I worked. And they're small things. It wasn't about adding new things. It was about subtracting and replacing. Subtract the bad things, replace it with something good. When I'm sitting in the car, when I'm driving, instead of listening to music just so that I can turn my brain off, I'm listening to a podcast. Instead of doom scrolling through Instagram and scrolling through TikTok all the time, I have a book on my phone. Instead of at night watching TV and you wonder why you can't sleep when you just had all those flashing lights in your face. Instead of watching TV at night as my pre-sleep routine, you replace those with a gratitude practice, with prayer, with these things that help you rest. Because it's not always about doing more. It's not always about adding more. It's about subtracting and replacing. I actually notice it's very clear. If you can obsess over this for just a month, for 30 days, if you can do that for 30 days, if that's too much for you, we found our problem. You don't have any focus. You never had any focus. This is the problem. But if you can obsess over this for 30 days, it starts to actually change the way that you think. And I say this as somebody who actually did that, and I noticed it. It was a very clear change. When you start to surround yourselves and constantly feed your mind the correct things, you start to think differently. And that might sound obvious, but your brain is always influenced by something. It's never neutral. It's always influenced by something. And so you need to correct the influence. There is either a negative or a positive influence. If you're not choosing positive intentionally, the world will just automatically fill it with negativity. That's just how the world works. We don't read newspapers because we want to see good news. We want to see everything that's wrong with the world. That's why the news is never good. So if you don't choose what you're filling your mind with, the world will choose for you, and I'm telling you, it's not going to be good. If you can do this and obsess over it for 30 days, I used to listen to podcasts like Jim Rohn. I still do. I love Jim Rohn. And like these Napoleon Hill videos, which I found out were just like AI videos of his book, which is cool. It's still still good. And other things like that. I started to see that in my videos that I would create for like Instagram and TikTok that are a little bit shorter. I started to speak like him. I started to add the rhythm that he has, and if you don't do this, then you live like. And I start to speak like him. It wasn't intentional. It was the influence that I've filled my mind with, and that's a good thing. If you're not choosing it deliberately, the world will choose for you, and that is the last thing that you need. Even in the Bible, and I believe in Romans, it says to transform your mind, to renew your mind. It is a very literal thing that it's talking about there. And in Proverbs chapter 1, just so happens that this is the blueprint you need to do it every day, to build a business, to build something successful, to do something great with your life. That is what you need. But there is a trap. Okay, so there's a trap that you and we will both fall into it if we're not very aware of it and we don't understand it. Solomon himself actually wrote a book after this in Ecclesiastes, and if you read 1 Kings, read his whole story, you actually see it there where he fell into this trap himself, and he wrote about it. So, I mean, if you want to know why we should understand this, because he actually went through it. But this is the trap. I'm going to read the couple verses, but then we'll talk about it. In verse 17 through 19, it says, if a bird sees a trap being set, it knows to stay away. But these people set an ambush for themselves. They're trying to get themselves killed. Such is the fate of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. Now, if you thought the first part was too much, you're like, man, that's just way too much. I can't listen to music now. No, that's not what this is saying. You do need to rest. And we're going to talk about that. But at a certain point, a constant growth mentality eventually turns into greed, and you're no longer looking for discipline. You're looking for shortcuts. This is the trap that people fall into if you're not aware of it. That is why God gave us Sabbath. That's why God gave us a day of rest, because rest is still productive. You are either resting so that you can grow tomorrow, or you're in the actual growth period where you're growing today. You're resting to grow tomorrow, or you're growing today. Those are the two options. But the trap, if you're not resting, you turn to greed and shortcuts. That is a trap. And It's telling us even a bird is a simple animal, a little bird. It sees a trap being set. It knows it's a trap. It stays away from the trap. People know greed is bad. People know shortcuts are bad, but they're not aware of it. Well, no, I mean, they know it, but then they're slowly pushing themselves into it. They're setting the trap for themselves. They're robbing themselves of their own life. God is very clear about this, especially for entrepreneurs. If you are looking for easy, if you're looking for something simple, if you're looking, I mean, all these for something atypical, you want the life that everybody else has, then live the way that everybody else does. But if God is calling you to be set apart, you need to live differently. Growth, wisdom, and discipline, it leads to a sustainable, peaceful growth. And even if you look at math points to God. Exponential growth. Have you ever seen a chart of exponential growth? If you can't see, it looks like, well, if you're watching this on YouTube, it looks like this. It's slow and steady at the beginning. It's sustainable. And eventually, because it's sustainable, it shoots up. It shoots straight up. A penny doubled every day for 30 days. At the end of day 31, it's about like $10 million because it's sustainable. It's compounded growth. But the key is that you need to be sustainable. And if you start turning to greed and shortcuts, you're beyond the sustainability phase. You're looking at anxiety. You're looking at burnout. You're always burnt out. You're tired. You might have made money, but it feels empty. It's hollow. There's no fulfillment. This is the trap that you need to avoid. And especially today, people are looking for get rich quick. They're looking for meme stocks. They're looking for anything other than building wealth over time. That's what we help people with. And that's why I can tell you this so clearly, is because people are looking for get rich quick, and I see it every day. Don't make that mistake of going from wisdom and discipline to greed and shortcuts. Lastly, in the last half of Proverbs, about the last half, Solomon is writing in the first person of wisdom. So from the perspective of wisdom, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's kind of long. I'm going to give you the bullet points. So here's what he's talking about. In the first person from wisdom, it says, wisdom shouts in the streets, how long will you simpletons ignore me? Come and listen to my counsel. I will make you wise. I called you. You wouldn't come. You ignored my advice. And this is the sad part, the scary part, is that eventually it will be too late. That's what wisdom is telling us. It will be too late. And it says, for those who continue to ignore my advice, they must eat the bitter fruit of living their own way. But all who do listen to me will live in peace, untroubled by the fear of harm. And that's a small thing, the fear of harm, but that alone is telling us that wisdom is protection. If you lost everything today, but you had wisdom, you would be able to rebuild it. It's a form, it's almost like insurance. It replaces what you lose. Wisdom is protection. If you don't have wisdom, you need to find it, but two, you need to know that wisdom is looking for you. And if you haven't found it yet, it's because you're hanging around the wrong people. Why would wisdom want to hang around maybe you're looking for wisdom, but wisdom doesn't hang around with your friends. And if that's you, you know very clearly this is you. But surrounding yourself with those people, wisdom doesn't hang around there. You're not going to find it there. Wisdom is looking for you, but it's looking for you in the right places. Put yourself in that place. Don't be the best person in your business. Don't be the smartest person in the room. Find people who have wisdom. That's where wisdom is hanging. That's where wisdom is looking. And I am going to read this part to you, but in verses 30 to 33, and we're almost done, it says, they rejected my advice and paid no attention when I corrected them. Therefore, they must eat the bitter fruit of living their own way, choking on their own schemes. For simpletons turn away from me to death. Fools are destroyed by their own complacency, but all who listen to me will live in peace, untroubled by the fear of harm. That's part of what I was just telling you. But if you wondered how true, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you ever wondered how true that is, Proverbs says that's very true. It's very literal. If you are not growing, you are dying. All who listen to me will live in peace, untroubled by the fear of harm. Fools are destroyed by their own complacency. Simpletons turn away from me to death. The opposite direction of wisdom is death. Every day that you choose to ignore wisdom, you will eat the bitter fruits eventually. You either listen and become more disciplined and become more wise and gain peace, or you're turning to death. Your business, you can't build a business like that. I mean, this is just about life, but you can't build a business like that. The blueprint for business is to fear God, acquire wisdom, and to do it every single day. To have these things, you will build something that never dies, that never fails. And if you want to do things like this, if you're looking to do good things with good people, this is actually the reason why I created the 7-minute wealth audit. I'm not going to talk about it too much in this video, but if you want to understand more about what it is free, and I created it with these kind of things in mind. Read the description and it will all be there. It will tell you exactly what it is, how to get it. But if you're just here for content, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video where we're going to talk about Proverbs chapter 2.